Urban ordinary boy, after being cheated by his materialistic girlfriend, unexpectedly obtained the inheritance of a cultivation master, and from then on, he became an urban immortal. A renowned Chinese medicine practitioner, he is my disciple, the leader of the martial arts world, my younger brother, a top leader, and a subordinate of mine. With his left hand turning the clouds, his wealth rolling in, and his right hand falling in the rain, he pretends to be forced to slap him in the face. Life is so joyful and exhilarating. After the incident, I brushed off my clothes and hid my achievements and fame. From then on, there is only my legend in the world. Chapter 1. Becoming a Cultivator. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At noon, facing the city to the east, Tianyuan community. Shenhao stood under a big tree, feeling cold all over. A minute ago, he saw with his own eyes his girlfriend Wu Sha, intimately holding onto a chubby, nouveau riche middle-aged man, and after coming out of the community, he got into a black Audi A6 and drove away. Maybe it's her relatives at that time. Shenhao was still comforting himself, thinking that only when he saw the middle-aged man getting on the car and lewdly grabbing Wu Sha's chest, and Wu Sha not only did not get angry, but also leaned against her with a coquettish smile, did he have to believe reality. Why? Shenhao's heart was filled with endless anger, and he punched the big tree hard. If Wu Sha were to be with someone else after breaking up with him, Shenhao might feel uncomfortable, but he wouldn't hold any grudges. After all, choosing who to be her boyfriend is Wu Sha's freedom. But Wu Sha was cheating on him while dating. This is deception. Bang! 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 Shenhao punched one after another and hit the big tree hard. Quickly, the fist was torn open and bleeding profusely. But Shenhao was completely unaware and continued to fight fiercely. Compared to the pain in my heart, this pain is nothing. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud noise in the sky. Oh my goodness, you can chop me to death. Come on. Shenhao thought it was thunder, tore open his collar, and roared up in anger. Then, he saw a strange meteor-like light descending from the sky and penetrating his head. In an instant, Shenhao felt as if his mind was about to explode, and countless pieces of information rushed in like a tide. He immediately leaned against the tree and fainted. I don't know how long it took, but Shenhao woke up. He blinked his eyes, feeling a bit confused. Did you really get struck by lightning? Shenhao looked up at the sky. The sky is deep blue, without even a trace of clouds. Suddenly, Shenhao seemed to feel something, raised his hands to look, and suddenly widened his eyes in shock. The hands, with their skin and flesh torn, surprisingly became intact, with no scars except for the blood that had spilled before. What? What's going on? Shenhao was dumbfounded. Suddenly, a huge memory surged through my mind. It took Shenhao a long time to understand. It turned out that he was not struck by lightning, but by chance, he fused the remaining soul of a cultivator from another world. This cultivator, named Tianqianzi, has reached the late stage of Mahayana cultivation and is only one step away from ascending to the immortal realm. But at the critical moment of crossing the tribulation, he was ambushed by someone, and his physical body and spiritual essence were destroyed. Only a trace of his remaining soul escaped, breaking through the air and arriving on earth. Tianqianzi knew he couldn't survive, so he passed on his lifelong memory and residual soul energy to Shenhao, explaining the cause and effect. He hoped that if Shenhao could achieve success in his cultivation one day, he could return to a different world and help him seek revenge. Shenhao was pleasantly surprised. From the memory of Tianqianzi, there is no difference between cultivators and legendary immortals. Generating fire in the void, condensing water into ice, flying through the air. All sorts of spells, without a doubt, powerful individuals can even conquer mountains and seas, shatter the heavens and shatter the earth. I didn't expect to have this power myself. Suddenly, Shenhao felt something gushing out of his body, sticky and uncomfortable. He untied his clothes and saw a layer of muddy black impurities on his skin. That is the residual soul energy of Tianquanzi, which not only cleanses his flesh and hair, but also directly becomes a cultivator in the early stage of qi refining. Immediately, Shenhao felt an unprecedented sense of comfort and relaxation, and his whole body became full of energy. The Dantian is filled with powerful power, which is the magical power of cultivators and can be activated according to their heart and mind. In addition, there is a wonderful perception that allows one to see everything around them even without the need for eyes. That is the spiritual consciousness of cultivators, like radar, which can scan and see through everything. Shenhao was even more surprised. Senior Tianquanzi, although we have never met before, since I inherit your memory and inheritance, I am your successor. If one day I succeed in my cultivation, I will definitely go to another world to avenge you. Shenhao bowed a few times to the sky and said sincerely. After speaking, Shenhao glanced at Tianyuan community and felt extremely emotional in his heart. Not long ago, he was still in pain, but now, there is only confidence and calmness. Step by step suddenly, footsteps sounded, and a sexy and plump young woman passed by, seemingly smelling the strange smell on Shenhao's body. She couldn't help but cover her nose, show a look of disgust, and walked quickly. Shenhao instinctively scanned with his divine sense. Immediately, he widened his eyes. He quickly collected his divine consciousness and turned around. Prosperity, democracy, civilization, harmony, rule of law. He silently recited his core values for a while, and his mood calmed down. Divine consciousness can see through, wouldn't it be like in the future? Shenhao's evil heart thought. He suddenly shuttered his nose and smelled a foul odor emanating from his body. No wonder he is so despised by sexy young women. It's okay, it's easy to solve. Shenhao exerted his magic and with a slight shock, impurities automatically detached from his body, turning into dust and drifting out from the cuffs and collar. He lowered his head and sniffed, his body clean and tidy, without any strange smell. It seems that even taking a shower can be saved in the future. Shenhao shrugged his shoulders and turned to leave. Someone has fainted, please call an ambulance. As soon as he left the Tianyuan community, Shenhao heard an anxious shout. He turned his head and saw a group of people gathered in front of a red Maserati on the square in front of the community. Shenhao's divine sense swept through the crowd and saw a young girl fainting on the ground. A middle-aged woman in her 50s, who looked like a nanny, was frantically surrounding the girl. Not good, there is a risk of life. Shenhao was surprised to see the girl's face turn blue and her breathing was rapid. He quickly ran over and squeezed into the crowd. He graduated from medical school, and although he did not become a doctor, as a cultivator, he has many ways to save people. Seeing him at this moment, he naturally cannot turn a blind eye to death. You squeeze a few times. A fat man was pushed aside heavily by him and couldn't help but curse angrily. 1. Shenhao replied without hesitation. The fat man was taken aback for a moment, but before he could react, Shenhao had already entered the crowd. Is this little girl suffering from heatstroke? It could also be anemia. The onlookers chattered incessantly. Hello auntie, I am studying medicine. Can I help you take a look at her? Shenhao walked forward and said to the middle-aged woman. Great, little brother, help me take a look at my young lady. She suddenly fainted as soon as she got off the car. The middle-aged woman was extremely anxious, and upon hearing these words, she was immediately overjoyed. Shenhao squatted down and pretended to make a check, secretly scanning the girl with his divine sense. After a moment, Shenhao had a clear idea in his mind. Auntie, your young lady has acute pulmonary embolism, which means that the blood vessels in the pulmonary artery are blocked. Immediate rescue is necessary, otherwise there will be life-threatening consequences. Immediately, Shenhao said to the middle-aged woman. Ah. I called an ambulance and said I'll be there in half an hour. Can I make it in time? The middle-aged woman hurriedly asked. Not in time, this is an acute arterial embolism. If not effectively treated within 10 minutes, it can lead to death. Shenhao shook his head and said. What should we do then? The middle-aged woman suddenly felt like a bolt from the blue. Auntie, I can treat your young lady and ensure her survival until the ambulance arrives, but the prerequisite is that you must trust me. Shenhao said calmly. In fact, he can easily heal this girl, but naturally he cannot speak too fully. I believe you can save my young lady quickly. Middle-aged women are already in a state of desperation, where would they refuse? Shenhao squatted down and helped the girl up, leaning against himself. What a beautiful little sister. At this moment, he noticed that the girl had snow-white skin, picturesque eyebrows, curved willow eyebrows, a fragrant nose and sandalwood mouth, and delicate features that seemed like masterpieces of heaven, breathtaking beauty. The girl's figure is also excellent, with a front convex and back curved shape, and a pair of long legs that are even straighter than Vimy angels. Through his clothes, Shenhao could feel the girl's smooth, soft, and elastic skin, and he could smell the intoxicating fragrance in his nose. Shenhao couldn't help but feel a wave in his heart, but immediately his mind trembled and he straightened his attitude. When has it been? I'm still thinking about all this mess. What are you doing? Stop it. He was about to use magic to heal when suddenly a domineering voice rang out. Shenhao looked up. I saw a young man with a sword eyebrow wearing a white coat and a middle-aged man with a driver-like appearance squeezing into the crowd, looking at him with an unpleasant expression. Pull him apart. Before Shenhao could speak, the young man with sword eyebrows said to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man immediately stepped forward, grabbed Shenhao's shoulder, and pulled hard outward. Shenhao frowned and released a trace of magic, instantly shaking the middle-aged man away. The middle-aged man took several steps back in a row, only feeling pain in his hands and his face filled with surprise. What are you doing? He is treating my miss, please don't disturb him. The middle-aged woman quickly called out. Are you Aunt Li from the Du family? The young man glared fiercely at Shenhao and said, I am Ling Kai, the grandson of Ling traditional Chinese medicine. I heard that Miss Du Xueqing came to see a doctor today, and my grandfather specifically asked me to pick you up. When I saw your car, I quickly came over. You are the grandson of the miraculous doctor, great. My young lady suddenly fainted when she got off the car just now. Fortunately, this young man helped to treat her. The middle-aged woman let out a surprise and explained to Shenhao. Aunt Li, hurry up and let this person let go of Miss Xueqing. He doesn't understand medicine at all. When I just came over, I already saw that Miss Xueqing fainted because of an acute myocardial infarction. His actions will only worsen the condition, which is equivalent to harming Miss Xueqing. Ling Kai's face turned icy cold and he spoke loudly. What upon hearing this, Aunt Li became shocked and angry as she looked at Shenhao's expression. Why don't you put down my young lady? Chapter 2. Who was beaten in the face? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Aunt Li, don't believe him. Your young lady really has a pulmonary embolism. If I stop treating her, she will be in danger. Shenhao explained. Don't believe me. Ling Kai sneered, what a fearless ignorant person. Master Yang, tell him who I am. Kid, have you ever heard of the legendary Dr. Ling Zhongzi? This is his grandson. Don't look at him young, but he is a master's student at Kyoto University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. He has a deep understanding of the legendary doctor's teachings and rich medical experience. How dare you make others not believe him? He's really laughing his teeth. The middle-aged man looked at Shenhao, full of mockery. Make Kai slightly raise his chin and look proud. Wow. Ling Zhongzi Ling Shini, in our Donglin city, that's like thunder piercing through one's ears. Yes, it is said that Lingshan doctor is a national expert today and has been sick for all the leaders of the country, especially the Tsanyan silver acupuncture, which is a unique skill of acupuncture and moxibustion in traditional Chinese medicine. I don't know how many difficult and miscellaneous diseases have been cured. Since he is the grandson of Ling Shini and has studied at a prestigious university, he must also be a little Shini. Is that worth mentioning? Just looking at someone's temperament, it's not average. The onlookers were amazed upon hearing this. I'm asking you, you keep saying that Miss Xueqing has a pulmonary embolism. How was it diagnosed? Ling Kai looked at Shenhao from a condescending position and questioned. Shenhao's face changed and he didn't speak. He can't say he sees with divine sense. I'll ask you again, do you have a medical qualification certificate? Seeing this, Kai sneered and asked again. No. Shenhao said helplessly. Without a medical qualification certificate and any diagnosis, do you dare to conclude that Miss Xueqing has a pulmonary embolism? Do you dare to treat her? You are so bold. Do you know that this is illegal medical practice? To be more serious, you are killing someone. Let Kai speak in a sharp voice. Bastard, let go of my young lady. Aunt Li's gaze at Shenhao was about to burst into flames. No matter how good his temper was, Shenhao couldn't help but feel angry and said, I did this to save talent. Why are you spewing blood at me? Ling Kai said with a sneer, you can pull it off. I know what you are thinking. You must have seen Miss Xueqing's Maserati sports car. You thought that her family was rich and she was beautiful. So you had evil thoughts and wanted to use this opportunity to please. Maybe you could win Miss Xueqing's heart. It's shameless. So it's like this. No wonder this kid is so enthusiastic about saving people. It turns out he was premeditated. The onlookers suddenly realized and looked at Shenhao with disdain in their eyes. If you don't let go of my miss, I'll call the police. Aunt Li is even more furious. Shenhao calmly put down Du Xueqing and said, what you're doing is equivalent to harming your young lady. Aunt Li spat and said, I would believe you, this scammer. She ignored Shenhao and begged Ling Kai, little miraculous doctor, Miss is in danger now. Please take action to heal her. Auntie Li, don't worry, this small matter is up to me. Ling Kai confidently said, taking out a slender jade box from his white coat and placing it on the hood of the car. After opening it, there was a row full of silver needles inside. Aunt Li and Master Yang, please help lift Miss Xueqing. I will give her an injection, and she will be fine in a while. Ling Kaima quickly pulled out a few silver needles and wiped them with cotton soaked in alcohol while giving instructions. Aunt Li and Master Yang quickly followed suit. Shenhao couldn't help but say, Doctor, it's best for you to re-diagnose. If treated according to myocardial infarction, it will only make Miss Xueqing more serious. You're joking with her life. Ling Kai sneered and said, are you also worthy of pointing me out? Aunt Li sternly said, why don't you get out of here? Don't regret it. Shenhao sighed and turned around to leave. Suddenly, Ling Kai reached out and stopped, if you want to leave, how could there be such a cheap thing? He sneered and said to Master Yang, this scammer doesn't have a medical qualification certificate and is practicing medicine illegally. Look at him, don't let him run away. I'll deal with him after I cure Miss Xueqing. Master Yang looked at Shenhao with fierce eyes and nodded in response, okay. Shenhao laughed angrily and said, okay, I'm not leaving. I want to see how you cured Miss Xueqing. Even you can understand it. Kai looked at him disdainfully, holding a silver needle, and began to treat Du Xueqing. In less than 3 minutes, Ling Kai finished administering the needle. In this short period of time, Du Xueqing's face changed from green to red, and her rapid breathing became normal, seemingly greatly relieved. This is the unique skill of Sanyan silver needle technique. In my family, I have gained a lot of experience. Yeah, that's the real way to save people. That kid was just fooling around. Fortunately, the little miracle doctor stopped him, otherwise he would have caused a lot of trouble. The onlookers saw it and were once again amazed. It's already done, Aunt Li, help Miss Xueqing into the car, let her rest for a while, and she will wake up. Then take her to my grandfather's place for further recuperation, and she will be fine. Ling Kai smiled slightly and put away the silver needle. Thank you, little divine doctor. Without you, Miss would really be in danger. She truly deserves to be a family of divine doctors. Aunt Li is extremely grateful. Ling Kai turned around and looked at Shenhao, sneering, didn't you just say that I would make Miss Xueqing more serious? How does it feel to be slapped in the face now? Everyone looked at Shenhao with sarcastic expressions on their faces. You'll soon know who got slapped in the face. Shenhao said lightly. Be tough. Ling Kai sneered and said, Master Yang, call the police and arrest him. Master Yang took out his phone and said, okay, I'll call right away. Little miracle doctor, come and take a look, Mississippi. She suddenly vomited blood. Suddenly, Aunt Li's hurried voice came through. What? Kai was taken aback and quickly turned around. I saw Du Xueqing, who had just improved, spitting out blood and her face turning even bluer than before. Everyone was also surprised. Little miracle doctor, what's going on? Aunt Li exclaimed in surprise. It's impossible. I used a silver needle to relieve her myocardial infarction, how could it turn out like this? Kai instantly lost his composure and pride, his face extremely panicked. It's simple. You treat Miss Xueqing's condition as a myocardial infarction and forcefully dilate her heart vessels with a silver needle. Although it may seem like temporary relief, it's actually of no use. Moreover, due to the delay in time, it worsens pulmonary embolism, causing her to cough up blood. Shenhao's cold voice rang out. Everyone immediately looked at him in shock. Is Shenhao right, and is it only the little divine doctor who made a mistake in judgment? You're talking nonsense. Ling Kai's forehead was bulging with veins. What are you, dare you accuse me of being wrong? If you think it's right, then continue with the treatment. Shenhao said calmly, but don't blame me for not warning you. Due to your incorrect treatment, Miss Xueqing was supposed to last for 10 minutes. Now, at most 5 minutes, she will suffocate and die from coughing up blood. Ling Kai was speechless, with beads of sweat the size of soybeans oozing from his forehead and his face turning blue. Chapter 3. The True Little Divine Doctor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Little brother, I misunderstood you just now. I'm really sorry. Don't argue with me, please help my young lady. Aunt Li saw it and knew that Ling Kai might have made a mistake. She was both anxious and angry, so she felt ashamed and begged Shenhao again. I'm sorry, I don't have a medical qualification certificate. If I take action and someone accuses me of practicing medicine illegally, I can't bear this responsibility. Shenhao said coldly. Everyone looked at Ling Kai and Master Yang. Master Yang looked embarrassed and quickly put down his phone. Mr. Ling, didn't you say you wouldn't make Miss Xueqing worse? What's the feeling of being slapped in the face now? Shenhao said lightly. Make Kai's face turn blue and purple. This is exactly what he said earlier, but now it has been returned by Shenhao as he said. Little brother, we know we're wrong. Please, life is at stake. Help Miss quickly. Aunt Li was so anxious that she almost cried. She apologized and almost knelt down for Shenhao. Forget it, Shenhao only spoke in anger for a moment, so he naturally wouldn't be indifferent. He walked over and pointed out that Ru Feng had nodded a few times on Du Xueqing. Immediately, Du Xueqing stopped vomiting blood and her face quickly returned to normal. Everyone suddenly widened their eyes in shock. With just a few clicks, you can stop vomiting blood, it's really amazing. What medical technique is this? Kai was even more shocked and couldn't help but ask in surprise. He vaguely saw that Shenhao seemed to be using acupuncture techniques, but what acupuncture technique could achieve such an immediate effect? Even if he is a family of traditional Chinese medicine, he has never heard of it. Bring the silver needle. Shenhao reached out and said. What? Let Kai be stunned. Shenhao was too lazy to talk nonsense to him. He reached out and grabbed Ling Kai's jade box, took out the silver needles inside, and stabbed Du Xueqing's lung meridian acupoints one by one. In an instant, his magic followed the silver needle and penetrated into Du Xueqing's pulmonary artery, melting the embolus that blocked the blood vessels inside. Immediately, Du Xueqing's breathing stabilized. Shenhao put away the silver needle, but did not stop the treatment. Instead, he continued to use his divine sense to examine Du Xueqing's body. The occurrence of pulmonary embolism is not unfounded, which means that there is a cause in Du Xueqing's body. If left unresolved, it may recur in the future. Soon, Shenhao's expression moved. Shenshi discovered that there seemed to be a defect in Du Xueqing's heart. Originally, it was a congenital inherited heart disease Shenhao carefully observed for a while, and his heart was clear. Since it has been cured, then let the good person do it to the end. Shenhao half picked up Du Xueqing and placed his palm on her back, activating his magic and continuously pouring into her heart. He didn't notice that under Du Xueqing's closed eyelids, her eyeballs twitched slightly. Du Xueqing had already awakened by this time. But she doesn't want to open her eyes. Because on Shenhao, she felt a pure aura that had never existed before. This breath is so pure and beautiful, like a magnet that deeply attracts her. Even if Du Xueqing and Shenhao were just new to each other and didn't know each other, they wouldn't be willing to leave. Moreover, Shenhao's hands emitted a very warm and comfortable force, continuously sinking into her fragile heart, which had been tormented from childhood to adulthood. Under this force, Du Xueqing could clearly feel that her heart was becoming vibrant, strong and powerful. Oh! The feeling of comfort became stronger and stronger, and Du Xueqing enjoyed it beautifully. She couldn't help but let out a moan that made her blood boil. Upon hearing this, Shenhao turned his head in surprise and looked at her face, thinking that Du Xueqing had come to her senses. Du Xueqing's eyes closed tightly. Perhaps it was an unconscious sound. Shenhao didn't think much and turned to continue his treatment. He didn't notice that as soon as he turned his head, Du Xueqing's pretty face turned crimson, all the way to the roots of her ears. I lost my life and made that kind of noise. Du Xueqing had a strong desire to die, but fortunately she dressed up quickly and was not discovered by Shenhao. A few minutes later, Shenhao finished his treatment and confirmed with his divine sense that there were no more heart problems before helping Du Xueqing up and placing her in the back seat of the car. It's all right now. If you're not confident, wait for the ambulance to arrive and give Miss Xueqing a check. Up. Shenhao said to Aunt Li. Thank you, little brother. If it weren't for you, I really wouldn't know what to do. Aunt Li was extremely grateful. You are the real little miracle doctor. We all misunderstood you just now. I'm sorry, little brother. Yeah, I'm really sorry, Aunt Li is right. You're the little miracle doctor. The onlookers were also embarrassed and apologized to Shenhao one after another. Shenhao smiled and waved his hand. Upon hearing this, Kai couldn't help but feel a fiery expression on his face and a mixture of sourness and jealousy in his heart. He has always been proud and boastful of his medical skills, but he never imagined how he could be willing to be compared to an inconspicuous young man in public. Although you saved Miss Xueqing, you don't have the qualifications to practice medicine and experience. It must have been just a coincidence, and I just made a mistake by chance. It doesn't represent my true level. If I don't believe it, we can compare and see who has better medical skills. Ling Kai said defiantly. Mr. Ling, are you studying medicine to compare yourself with others? Shenhao frowned and said lightly, if you think your medical skills are very good, then please don't make mistakes in the future and treat more patients with your heart. Isn't it better? Why must you compete with me? Well said. This is the doctor's parents' heart, give me a thumbs up. At this moment, everyone looked at Shenhao with admiration, and upon hearing this, they immediately clapped their hands. Ling Kai choked so hard that he couldn't say a word, and his face turned extremely pale. There's a girl, but I let her get away suddenly. Shenhao's phone rang. Hello. Shenhao answered the phone. A rude middle-aged woman's voice came. Shenhao, where are you? I tell you, if you don't pay the rent today, I'll throw out all your luggage. Don't, Aunt Kai, I'll go back and pay the rent right away. Wait for me for a while. Upon hearing this, Shenhao suddenly became anxious. He just remembered that today was the day to pay the rent. A few days ago, the landlord, Aunt Kai, was extremely vicious and asked him for money. Unfortunately, Aunt Kai didn't listen and hung up the phone directly. Aunt Li, I have something to attend to and will leave first. Shenhao felt anxious and waved his hand to Aunt Li, then turned around and hurriedly left. Little brother, I don't know your name yet. You should leave a phone number. Aunt Li asked after her. Suddenly, someone grabbed her from behind. Aunt Li turned around and saw that it was Ling Kai. Aunt Li, since Miss Xueqing is already well, you don't have to chase him anymore. Ling Kai's eyes flickered and he whispered, let me discuss something with you. When Miss Xueqing wakes up, can you just say I cured her? Chapter 4. Underground Casino. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course not, how could you do this? Aunt Li immediately became extremely angry and sternly refused. I'll give you 50,000 yuan. Ling Kai whispered. Aunt Li hesitated for a moment. She was just a nanny and unexpectedly received 50,000 yuan, which naturally moved her heart. Anyway, that kid has also left, it's impossible to find him again. Ling Kai looked at her face and continued to whisper, moreover, Miss Xueqing's illness has not been cured. I still need my grandfather to continue seeking medical treatment, saying that I have cured it. It will benefit you, me, and her. Okay. Aunt Li hesitated for a while, but under greed, she still nodded. Make Kai smile slightly. Mr. Ling, are you so shameless? Does your grandfather know? Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind. Startled by this, Kai and Aunt Li quickly turned around and saw Du Xueqing waking up at some point, leaning against the car door and sneering at them. Miss Xueqing, don't misunderstand, I just wanted to. Make Kai's face change color and still want to explain. Du Xueqing interrupted him and said, you don't have to say anything. I was originally looking forward to your medical skills, but your character has really disappointed me. Aunt Li, thank you for taking care of me all the time. But from today on, you can go back to your hometown. I will give you a pension as a reward for all these years. After speaking, Du Xueqing looked at Aunt Li again and sighed slightly. Miss, I was just momentarily confused, please. Aunt Li's face turned pale and she couldn't help but cry. Du Xueqing shook her head, walked to the driver's seat, sat in, and lightly pressed the ignition button. The Maserati sports car roared. Miss Xueqing, please think carefully again. You have a congenital inherited heart disease, and only my grandfather can cure you. Kai spoke loudly, unwilling to accept it. That's not necessarily true. Du Xueqing held the steering wheel in her left hand, while her snow-white right hand opened and smiled slightly. In the palm of my hand is a work permit with a photo, which reads, Shenhao, salesperson of Guangming Advertising Company. That was when Shenhao was treating her earlier and accidentally fell to the ground, which was picked up by Du Xueqing. Shenhao, I will find you. Du Xueqing's beautiful eyes flickered with a strange expression, and she activated Maserati, leaving without a trace. I've been running out of money lately. Let's borrow some money from the fat guy first to save the situation. Shenhao walked towards the bus station while flipping through his phone. The chubby man's name is Wang Jie, and he is Shenhao's youngest son. He comes from a privileged family and is a typical second-generation wealthy person. Although his father is very strict with him, he is still much stronger than Shenhao, who is a hanging silk. After the phone was dialed, it rang for a long time before it was answered. Before Shenhao could speak, Wang Jie's crying voice rang out. "Shenhao, I'm done. What's going on?" Shenhao was taken aback. "I lost money, I lost a lot." Wang Jie cried and said. "Fatty guy, you're gambling again." Shenhao suddenly felt a bit angry. Wang Jie has a good personality and is righteous, but he has a gambling habit. Shenhao has told him countless times before to quit, but Wang Jie always laughs and says that gambling is okay. "I lost 2 million. They asked me to repay the money within a week. If my dad knew, he would have to kill me." Wang Jie was crying uncontrollably. "Why have you lost so much?" Shenhao was taken aback and said, "Besides, where did you get so much money? Isn't your father usually very strict with you?" "I wrote them IOUs." Wang Jie cried. Shenhao was speechless. "Where are you?" "I'll be right over." He asked calmly. 2 million is not a small amount, the fat guy may have been calculated. Wang Jie provided an address. Shenhao hung up his phone, walked to the street, and stopped a taxi. 15 minutes later, Shenhao rushed to a high-end club. As soon as he got off the car, he saw Wang Jie sitting on the wooden chair in front of the club door, feeling lost. "What's going on?" Shenhao walked over, patted his shoulder, and sat down to ask. Wang Jie began to narrate listlessly. It turned out that not long ago, Wang Jie met a person named Li Wei at a gambling game, and after gambling a few times, he became acquainted. Today, Li Wei said to show Wang Jie the casino, and Wang Jie was curious and came over. At first, he won a lot, but later he lost continuously. Wang Jie was not willing to accept it, and after losing all his cash, he continued to gamble by issuing IOUs. As a result, he lost 2 million yuan in a confused manner. "You've lost all your money, just don't gamble, why do you still have to pay IOUs?" After listening, Shenhao asked in confusion. "I don't know what's going on, so I followed the devil like a demon. The more I lost, the more I wanted to win back, and then I got deeper and deeper. If it weren't for someone from a casino forcing me out, I might still be gambling now." Wang Jie rubbed his head in frustration. "Take me inside, I will meet that Li Wei." Upon hearing this, Shenhao's eyes flickered slightly with a cold light. "Why? You don't know how to gamble." Wang Jie was taken aback. "Do you want to get the money back?" Shenhao said straightforwardly. "Of course I want to, but what can you do?" Wang Jie said. "If you want to retrieve it, just listen to me. Don't worry, I have a solution." Shenhao cut off the railway with his nails. Wang Jie looked at him in a daze, for some reason, and suddenly felt that this friend seemed different from before. "Don't be fooled, do as I say." Shenhao gave him a push and whispered a few words. "Okay, then I'll just die and become a living horse doctor." Wang Jie gritted his teeth, anyway Shenhao would definitely not pit him. Two people enter the club. Arriving at the chess and card room on the second underground floor, a miasma aura rushed towards me. Many gamblers gathered around tables, their eyes turning red and shouting loudly. "That's Li Wei." Wang Jie extended his hand and pointed. Shenhao looked over and saw a small bearded man in his 30s sitting in front of an empty chess and card table, who looked very social at first glance. He was crossing his legs and smoking a cigarette with contentment. To Li Wei's left sat a young man wearing a floral shirt, while across from him was a bald man with a face full of flesh. Both of them have big arms and round waists, with tattoos on their arms. They don't look like good people. Paralyzed, if it weren't for the people at the casino causing trouble, we could at least make that chubby little guy lose 5 million today. Bald and cursing. Keep your voice down, don't let anyone hear you. Ling Jie is covering this scene. Li Wei frowned. Bald and his face changed, he quickly shut up. Li Gu, is that chubby little guy really wealthy? Don't let's work hard anymore, let's just have a happy ending. Hua Shirt asked. Don't worry. Li Wei blew out a mouthful of smoke and said, I've already investigated thoroughly. Little Fatty's father works in engineering, and he has at least tens of millions at home. 2 million is definitely worth it. That's good, it's not in vain for you to spend so many days calling him brother and fishing for this big fish. The Flower Shirt smiled. It's better to deceive someone like this stupid compared to wealthy second generation. Li Wei smiled proudly. Bastard, it turned out to be a scheme to frame me. Wang Jia was furious upon hearing this and couldn't help but rush over. Don't be impulsive. Shenhao reached out to stop him and said, let's settle this account with them bit by bit. Wang Jia held his breath and nodded. The two walked over. Chapter 5. Cheating Methods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How did you come back? Seeing Wang Jia, Li Wei, and the others were taken aback. Li Gu, I didn't have enough fun just now, so I took a spin outside and brought my friend back to continue playing. Wang Jia followed Shenhao's instructions and said. Li Wei and the three of them looked at each other with a smile, both thinking that it was impossible for a dog to change its behavior and rushing to give us money. Fatty guy, if you want to continue playing, of course we welcome you. Li Wei said calmly, but first of all, let me remind you that you owe me that 2 million yuan, which must be paid off within 7 days. Otherwise, you also know that I'm out to mess around. If you default, don't blame me for being impolite to you. As he spoke, his face darkened, revealing a hint of malice. Wang Jia suddenly felt his teeth itch with hatred. Li Wei used to treat him one brother after another, not to mention being too enthusiastic. After teasing him, he immediately turned his face and didn't recognize anyone. What's Li doing? Isn't it just 2 million? No problem, I'll pay it back for the fat guy. Don't hurt your feelings because of this small amount of money. Shenhao chuckled and sat down familiar with it. Li Wei and the others looked at him in surprise. Who is this kid? Looking inconspicuous, with such a loud tone. Let me introduce my iron buddy Shenhao to you. Not only is he good at this, but he is also a wealthy second generation, much richer than me. Wang Jia suppressed his hatred and deliberately emphasized the word money. Li Wei and the other three's eyes lit up. They were just frustrated that they couldn't make Wang Jia lose more money. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, Wang Jia not only came back, but also brought a bigger fat sheep. So it's Shenhao's younger brother, disrespectful and disrespectful. Do you smoke? Li Wei changed his face very quickly and immediately smiled, taking out a bag of soft china. Thank you, brother Li. I don't smoke. Shenhao waved his hand, took out a bank card, and boldly patted it on the table. I don't have any cash with me, but there is 10 million in this card. Apart from the 2 million that the fat guy had, the rest will be used as today's gambling capital. Have a good time playing. This is actually his salary card, with no money in it, it's just a bluff. 10 million. Upon hearing this, Li Wei and the others were overjoyed. Hurry up and pour Shenhao's brother a glass of water. Li Wei turned his head and ordered the floral shirt, secretly giving a wink. I'll go now. The flower shirt swayed with understanding. In no time, he brought a steaming cup of tea and handed it to Shenhao. Shenhao took it over, his divine sense swept away, and he sneered in his heart. There is a problem with the tea, it must have been drugged. Although ordinary people may not notice it, it is impossible to deceive him as a cultivator. It is estimated that Wang Jia's fall is closely related to this tea. He looked up and took a big sip, then suddenly sprayed out, causing Li Wei and the others to be covered all over their faces and bodies. I'm sorry, three brothers. I choked on my drink just now. I'm really sorry. Shenhao quickly put down his cup, apologized repeatedly, and handed over a tissue. It's okay. Although the three of them were not very happy, they didn't want to get angry and took a tissue to wipe. Give Shenhao another cup, said Li Wei. The floral shirt has gone again. Sorry about that. Shenhao clasped his hands and chuckled. He deliberately took this sip, not only extracting all the medicinal power from the tea, but also increasing the effect with his magic, in order to make the three of them taste the consequences on their own. Shenhao, what do you want to play? Li Wei smiled again and said, Swoha. Fried gold flowers. Or something else. Li Gu, I prefer simple and rough things. Let's play games and compare sizes. One game costs 10,000 yuan, and the winner takes all. How about that? Shenhao Dao. No problem. I like this personality, brother. You can play as you please. Li Wei was taken aback, then laughed even happier and took out a deck of poker. At this moment, the flower shirt brought another cup of tea. Shenhao didn't even look and drank it all in one gulp. This medicinal power naturally has no effect on him. The rule of comparing sizes is to take away the trump card, then 2 is the smallest, A is the largest. If the cards are the same, they are arranged according to spades, hearts, clubs, and diamonds. Whoever is the largest is the winner, and the winner takes all. Is that correct? Li Wei skillfully shuffled the cards while asking. That's right, come on. Shenhao nodded and said. The first one, brother, please draw first. Li Wei shuffled the cards, laid them flat on the table, and reached out to signal. Then I won't be polite. Shenhao randomly drew a playing card. He did not use divine perspective because he wanted to understand how the other person cheated and then use his own way of dealing with him. Li Wei and the others looked at each other, smiled at each other, and completely let go of their worries. This kid looks quite arrogant, but in fact, he's just a newbie. You can tell from this action that he hasn't played before. Shenhao, are you sure it's okay? Wang Jia looked on anxiously and couldn't help but walk over and ask in a low voice. Believe me, fat guy. Shenhao smiled confidently. Ling, the little chubby guy you asked me to drive away just now has returned and brought back a young man. In a room next to the chess and card room, a strong man in a suit and leather shoes looked at the CCTV on the wall and said to the woman sitting on the leather sofa in the corner. The woman named Ling is about 20.5 or 6 years old, with a beautiful face that captivates all beings, fiery red lips, smoky makeup, and a strong and wild allure. She was wearing a deep red vest on her upper body, with a curvy and graceful chest. With a plump waist, she held it tightly, and under her round black buttock skirt, her beautiful legs were straight and long, wearing flesh-colored stockings. Guess it. Ling Jie didn't show any signs of surprise and focused on using a beautiful butterfly knife to slice an apple, calmly saying. Do you want me to step forward again? The strong man asked. Li Wei and his team are too cunning. They played games in our field, and I don't know how many people were tricked. It has nothing to do with us. One is willing to fight and the other is willing to suffer. If you intervene, it will only make both sides hate you. Ling said calmly, we are not bodhisattvas, just show kindness once. At this moment, in front of the card table, Li Wei, Hua shirt, and bald head also drew a card one after another. Shenhao remained calm and looked in the dark, only to see that the three of them were gently rubbing the face of the cards with their hands before selecting one of them. Shenhao's heart moved and he looked at the playing card with his divine sense, suddenly realizing it. This playing card looks fine on the surface, but there are very subtle bumps in the middle, clearly marked. No wonder the fat guy lost so miserably. Strangely, Li Wei and the other three did not draw big cards, but all drew small cards. Li Wei is Zhang Diaoji 6, while the flower shirt and bald head are spades 2 and hearts 4, respectively. On second thought, Shenhao understood. The three of them deliberately played a small card for him to win, and when he tasted the sweetness and increased the bet, he would start cheating. Chapter 6. Assassination Mode. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. All drawn, Brother Shenhao, please show your cards. Li Wei said. Shenhao Yang opened the card, it was a plum blossom 9. Li Wei and the other three also showed their cards one after another, naturally none of them were as big as him. It's a good start. Shenhao laughed heartily. Brother Shenhao is so amazing. He was so lucky with his first move. It seems we will lose miserably today. Yeah, I hope the younger brother in the future can give us a way out. Li Wei and the others pretended to have a worried expression, but a cold smile flashed in their eyes. At the end of the round, according to the winner-take-all rule, Li Wei and the three of them all lost, and Shenhao earned 30,000 yuan. Wang Jie is responsible for bookkeeping on the side, and finally calculates the general ledger. In the second round, Shenhao drew a red peach J, and Li Wei and the other three were younger than him, earning an additional 30,000 yuan. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 innings passed, and Shenhao had both wins and losses, but overall he won more and lost less. After calculation, he earned around 100,000 yuan. As the gambling game progressed, several people became brothers and kept betting, and the atmosphere gradually became lively. Brother Shenhao has really good luck. Do you want to strike while the iron is hot and have something more exciting? After another round ended, Li Wei observed Shenhao's face carefully. Seeing that he was proud and his face turned red, he realized that the medicine had taken effect and took the opportunity to speak. Okay, I also feel very lucky today. I've been wanting to increase my bets for a long time. Shenhao smiled without hesitation. How about a game of 50,000 yuan? Li Wei tentatively asked. Too few. Shenhao waved his hand and said, if you want to clean up, make it bigger. One game costs 200,000 yuan. Li Wei and the others were overjoyed. They had originally planned to cook the frog in warm water, gradually tempting Shenhao to take the bait. Unexpectedly, this kid just lost his head. Okay. Brother is so refreshing. Li Wei gave a thumbs up and said, that's 200000. After shuffling, it was Shenhao's first draw. Shenhao swept his divine sense, pulled out spade A and held it in front of him. In the first 10 or so rounds, he had already figured out the cheating methods of the three of them clearly. Now that he's raising the stakes, he naturally wants to start the brutal killing mode. It's Li Wei's turn to draw cards. The bet increased 20 times, and Li Wei's face became solemn as he rubbed his fingers back and forth on the card, sensing subtle marks. After a moment, Li Wei drew a card, picked it up, and his eyes immediately showed joy. Red peach A. The markings on playing cards are not so precise, it can only be said that based on the markings, a certain range of big cards can be drawn. He was lucky enough to draw a heart A. Although there is also spade A above, the chance that Shenhao will draw it can be ignored. We're set to win. Li Wei took down the card and calmly tapped the middle finger of his right hand on the table. This is the secret code he agreed upon with flower shirt and bald head, which means that I have drawn a large number of cards and I am almost certain to win. You can draw as you please. Hua shirt and bald head understood each other and randomly drew one. Show me the cards, Brother Shenhao. I guess my luck will be better than yours. Li Wei looked at Shenhao with a teasing smile. Is that right? Shenhao opened the card with a smile on his face. Li Wei's smile suddenly solidified. The floral shirt and bald head were also dumbfounded. I didn't expect them to catch up with such a small chance. This is too bad, isn't it? Li Gu, it seems that you're not quite sure. Shenhao chuckled. Great, Shenhao. Wang Jie watched nervously from the side and was overjoyed at the sight. Just as I raised my bet, I received a big gift package. This luck is really incurable. Shenhao snapped his fingers and said, Fat man keeps accounts. Okay, I'll be obedient. It's 600,000 yuan all at once. Wang Jie happily recorded it. Li Wei and his companions looked at each other with a smile on their faces, feeling angry in their hearts. Li Gu, what card are you? Let me see. Shenhao seemed to feel that he was not good enough and asked with a smile. If you have one, then you don't need to watch. Li Wei forced a smile. See what you're afraid of. Shenhao couldn't help but lift the card in front of him. Wow, red peach A. Immediately, Shenhao laughed wildly and said, I happen to be restrained by my spade A, brotherly. To be honest, when you just drew a card, didn't you think you had one? This ending is really dramatic, ha ha ha. Li Wei almost spat out old blood. Don't be complacent too early, let's keep coming. He gritted his teeth and said, with a chill emanating from his words. After shuffling the cards, he slammed them hard onto the table. In the first game, you're lucky enough to be a dog. Do you believe that your luck in the second game can still be so good? Li, please. Shenhao smiled and reached out his hand. Li Wei took a deep breath, calmed down, and then rubbed the face of the card, concentrating on selecting. No one noticed that a faint light suddenly flashed in Shenhao's eyes. Masking the eye. Eye blocking is a simple small spell that can deceive people's perception and make incorrect judgments. In the second round, Li Wei drew cards first, followed by Hua Shirt and Bald Head, and finally it was Shenhao's turn. Shenhao certainly won't let them draw the biggest card first, even if it's just a possibility. Li Wei was completely unaware and, under the deceit of deception, passed by 4A cards and drew a red heart K. He picked up the card and looked at it, showing a satisfied expression. Although not a top-tier brand like A, it is also quite large. Unless Shenhao's luck continues to be extremely good, it is impossible to win against him. So Li Wei took down the card and lightly tapped the middle finger of his right hand on the table. Seeing the flower shirt and bald head, they both casually drew another card. It's Shenhao's turn to draw cards. Using divine sense, Shenhao effortlessly pulled out the spade K. We've all caught it, then I'll show my cards. Li Wei said, slowly lifting the card and calmly glancing at Shenhao. I'll go. Shenhao was momentarily stunned, showing a seemingly incredulous expression of astonishment. Li Wei's heart suddenly relaxed and he smiled, thinking that Shenhao must have drawn a smaller card than himself. Next are floral shirts and bald heads. As they were drawn randomly, neither player had a large face, with 7 hearts and 10 clubs respectively. It's your turn, brother Shenhao. I wonder if your good luck will continue in this game. Li Wei smiled with a hint of mockery in his tone. On the card table now, you are the only person who can possibly win against Li Gu. Don't let us down. Shenhao's hands are so hard, he must have caught another big card. Show it up quickly, let's take a look. Hua Shirt and Bald Head also deliberately said on the side, wanting to see Shenhao joke. Don't worry, we won't let you down. Shenhao chuckled and picked up the card to pat it on the table. What when Li Wei and the others saw it, they froze once again and were extremely angry. What an evil sect. How could this kid catch such a big card every time he plays? Sorry, I won again. Shenhao smiled and said, Fatty, keep an account. Okay. Wang Jie was overjoyed and recorded it. Just now, I saw that Li Weiliang was red heart K. He was quite nervous and worried that Shenhao would lose the second round, but he didn't expect it to be dangerous. Chapter 7. A Gambling of 500,000. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since your card is bigger than mine, why did you act so panicked just now? Is it interesting? Li Wei asked angrily. The floral shirt and bald face are also very unsightly. Shenhao's just reaction made them feel like they were being played with. Panic. You overthink it, I just think it's a coincidence. Shenhao looked surprised and said, because in the previous game, my spade A was just restraining your spade A, and in this game, my spade K is restraining your spade K. Li, you're really weak, He spoke and burst out laughing again. Who are you talking about? Li Wei's heart lit up and he suddenly stood up. You're joking, why is Brotherly so eager? You're also an old martial artist, can't you afford to lose? Shenhao's seemingly insincere persuasion is actually adding fuel to the fire. I can't afford to lose. Damn it. At this moment, Li Wei's medicinal power had already taken effect and he could no longer suppress his anger. Shenhao, don't think you won 2 games by luck. You're just as powerful as you are. Let's continue playing bigger. How big is it? Upon hearing this, Shenhao hit the nail on the head. 1 game costs 500,000. Do you dare? Li Wei spoke sternly. No problem. Shenhao shrugged his shoulders and said, but Brotherly, let's talk nonsense first. 1 game costs 500,000 yuan. Do you have that much money? I don't want to give you a promissory note. I don't have money. You're so funny. Li Wei, as if stimulated, pointed to his floral shirt and bald head and shouted, take it out and show him. Okay. Flower shirts and bald heads also got angry. They took out 3 suitcases from under the table and neatly placed them on the table. When they opened it, they were filled with hundreds of yuan bills. Do you see that 1 box contains 1 million, and 3 boxes make up 3 million in total? How dare you say I don't have money? Li Wei gritted his teeth and said. Amazing. I believe in your strength, Brotherly. As you said, it's 500,000 yuan per game. Shenhao gave a thumbs up. Li Wei sat down fiercely and shuffled his playing cards as if he were fierce. Shenhao, we won over 1 million yuan, which is already good. How about this? Don't play anymore. I'll just scrape together the remaining money myself. Don't take any risks. Wang Jia walked over and whispered nervously. A gamble of 500,000 yuan made him tremble with fear. Fatty guy, listen to me and keep good records. You don't have to worry about anything else. Not only will I help you get back the 2 million yuan, but I will also make these scumbags pay a heavy price and vent their anger on you. Shenhao patted his hand and whispered in the same voice. Wang Jia's eyes were moist. Where can I find such a good brother? I promise you I won't gamble again in the future. He wiped the corners of his eyes with his sleeve and whispered. Shenhao was taken aback and smiled with relief. Ha! Why didn't we follow the normal routine? In the adjacent room, the strong man looked at the surveillance footage with a look of surprise. What's wrong? Ling Jia still peeled the apple skin and asked without lifting her head or eyes. Li Wei's cheating failed, but instead the kid brought by the chubby guy won 2 games in a row and lost 1.2 million, and it seemed like Li Wei couldn't hold his breath and was being calculated. The strong man touched his chin and said with great interest. Oh. Ling Jia also showed a hint of surprise, that kid is a master. He deliberately pretended to be a pig and ate a tiger. Not like. The strong man shook his head and said, the movements are very immature, just beginners. Oh. Ling's voice remained calm as she said, that's useless. It's just luck. As long as he continues to gamble, he will eventually lose. I think so too. The strong man sighed and said, but to be honest, I really hope that kid's luck can continue and make Li Wei and his team suffer a big loss. It's your turn, smoke well. At this moment, Li Wei shuffled the cards and placed them on the table, saying in a pun to Hua's shirt. Don't worry, brother Li. The flower shirt blew a fierce breath into its hand and heart, caressing the face of the card and carefully selecting it. I don't believe it anymore. The three of them, with marks on their cards, can't suppress a lucky Shenhao. Shenhao looked at him with a smile on his face, his eyes flickering with a faint light, and he used another eye-blocking technique. A few seconds later, Hua's shirt drew a card, picked it up and looked at it, and his face immediately turned pale. Block J. Although it is also a big brand, it is the smallest among big brands. He lowered the card with a dejected expression, and lightly tapped the ring finger of his right hand on the table, indicating that the card was not very big, allowing Bald Head and Li Wei to hold on to it. Li Wei was extremely angry and wanted to curse a few words, but at the card table, he could only hold back. It's the bald draw. He also cheered up and carefully selected, but unfortunately, under the guise, he only drew 10 spades, not even a fancy shirt. Seeing the secret signal coming from his bald head, which was the same as a floral shirt, Li Wei's face became increasingly ugly. These two useless wastes are falling off the chain at critical moments. The third one is Shenhao. Shenhao drew a heart cue to avoid being a top-tier player in every game and causing suspicion. During the draw, Li Wei kept paying attention to his expression, wanting to see the clues. But what disappointed Li Wei was that throughout the process, Shenhao was very calm, with no sign of joy or sorrow. It's finally Li Wei's turn to draw cards. He was quite anxious in his heart, repeatedly rubbing back and forth on the card surface, hoping to draw the top-tier big card. But under Shenhao's deception, how could it be possible to draw? After a while, Li Wei finally pulled out one. Carefully picking it up, Li Wei's heart suddenly cooled. Plum Blossom Q. Although it's still possible, it's far from the big card he wants to draw. Anyway, there are only 10 cards on Plum Blossom Q, and Shenhao has only a quarter chance of winning. My chances of winning are still very high. Li Wei could only console himself and think. I'm showing my cards. The flower shirt was the first to lift the trump card when the four of them finished drawing. Li Wei glanced and immediately turned to Shenhao again. Shenhao's face remained calm and he couldn't see any expression. Li Wei's heart sank and he suddenly had a bad idea. It's a gamble of 500,000 now, and if Shenhao loses, it's unlikely that he will remain indifferent. This means that his card face should be larger than the floral shirt, but I don't know if it's bigger than mine. Li Wei thought anxiously, restless and eager to lift Shenhao's trump card and see what happened. Next is the bold and bright card. As his card is even smaller than the flower shirt, there is not much turbulence. It's my turn. Shenhao said, slowly reaching out and lifting the card. Definitely not above Plum Blossom Q, definitely not. Li Wei clenched his fists tightly, staring intently and shouting in his heart. Unconsciously, his chest and back were soaked through, and beads of sweat oozed from his forehead, even his face became ferocious. Shenhao Yang opens the card. Spade Q. Ah! Li Wei felt like he had been hit hard, shouted loudly, and his face turned gray. The floral shirt and bald head also changed their complexion greatly. Although I don't know what Li Wei's bottom card is yet, this expression clearly shows that he has lost. Chapter 8. All Wealth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brotherly, looking at you like this, isn't it just me restraining you? Shenhao smiled and calmly stabbed a knife into Li Wei's heart. Li Wei sat stiffly, unable to say a word. In a round of 500,000, he, along with the blossom shirt and bald head, lost a total of 1.5 million. Adding the 1.2 million he lost in the first 2 rounds, there was very little left of 3 million. Such a cruel blow almost made Li Wei collapse. No, I haven't shown my cards yet. I can use that method to turn the situation around. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind and his eyes lit up. At this moment, Shenhao reached out and lifted his card. What are you doing? Li Wei was taken aback and couldn't help but become furious. The bottom card is lifted, and losing becomes a foregone conclusion that can never be undone. I saw that you hadn't moved for a long time, so I helped you lift your trump card. What's going on? Shenhao exclaimed in shock. Li Wei's face turned pale with iron. This Shenhao is really lucky. I guess Li Wei's heart is dripping blood. In the neighboring room, the strong man looked at the surveillance footage with great interest and laughed happily. Did you win again? Ling suddenly stopped peeling apples and looked up to ask. Yeah, for 3 consecutive games, almost all of Li Wei's assets were taken in. The strong man smiled and said. Ling didn't speak, but suddenly stood up and walked up to the surveillance footage to watch. What's wrong, Sister Ling? The strong man asked in surprise. Shenhao is not an ordinary person. Not only did Li Wei not notice it, but you also got distracted. Ling skillfully played with the butterfly knife in her hand, her beautiful eyes fixed on Shenhao. I don't know, right? Although my eyesight is not as good as yours, I can still see that Shenhao has never been involved in gambling before. The strong man exclaimed in surprise, it should be good luck. The belligerent will perish. In the casino, perhaps 1 or 2 can be lucky occasionally, but it cannot last forever. Ling's beautiful eyes flashed with a flash of light. Shenhao, he is definitely a master. Fatty guy, how much did we win? Shenhao stretched lazily. 2.83 million. Wang Jie was so excited that he almost jumped up. Not only did he pay off all the money he owed, but he also won over 800,000 more. Very good. Shenhao smiled slightly and said, I had a lot of fun today. Brotherly, let's stop here and settle the accounts. Calculate the fart account. Li Wei gritted his teeth and said, if you win money, you want to leave. There's no such cheap thing. So what do you want? Shenhao sneered. I'll gamble with you for the last time, with all my wealth, dare you? Li Wei stared at him with red eyes, as if he was going to eat people. What dare I not do? Shenhao said, but brotherly, do you still have money? The vast majority of your 3 million is now mine, with only less than 200,000 left. Are you joking about gambling all your wealth with me? Li Wei's blood rushed all over his head. He took out an IOU and a car key and slammed them hard on the table, saying, this is the 2 million yuan from the fat guy, and my car, the BMW X5. I just brought it back less than a week ago, and with that little 200,000 yuan, that's enough, isn't it? Li Gu, don't be impulsive. There's a bit of a cult going on today. Why don't we just forget about it and find a chance to retaliate in the future? Yeah, it's not easy for us to earn a small fortune. If we lose, we'll have nothing left. The flower shirt and bald head still had some rationality left, and when they saw this, they trembled with fear and advised in Li Wei's ear. You don't have to worry, I have an absolute chance of winning. Li Wei couldn't hear anyone else, his forehead veins bulging and he gritted his teeth. He pressed the cuffs. Hua's shirt and bald head were taken aback, seemingly understanding something. They exchanged a glance and nodded slightly. That's enough, okay, I'll sacrifice my life to accompany the gentleman and play with brotherly for the last time. Shenhao's eyes flashed with a hint of essence, and he said lightly. Do you still think Shenhao is a beginner now? Next door, Ling looked at the surveillance footage and slowly asked. I don't think so. The strong man smiled bitterly and said, if you were a beginner, how could you face such a calm and composed gamble of nearly 3 million in a game? If I were to go up there, my hands would probably shake. However, Sister Ling, I have seen Shenhao and Li Wei's gambling game from beginning to end. I am aware of Li Wei's tricks, but how did Shenhao break the game by any means? Why can't I see it at all? Immediately, the strong man curiously asked again. If you can tell, is he still a master? Ling said lightly. Li Wei shuffled the cards and neatly laid them out on the table. The last round, you come first. He seemed to have regained his composure and said. Okay. Shenhao took out one and didn't even look at it. He simply pushed it onto the desktop. Don't you look at the cards. Li Wei was taken aback. Life and death are determined by fate, wealth and fortune are in heaven. I rely solely on luck to win these few games, and of course, the last one is the same. Winning is what I deserve in my life, losing is what I shouldn't have, and begging is useless. Shenhao said leisurely. Okay, in the last round, I'll bet your luck too. Look at God, who's on your side. Li Wei sneered and did not choose as before. Instead, like Shenhao, he randomly drew a card. However, after drawing the cards, he did not directly pull them down. Instead, he grabbed the playing card in his palm and held it with his right hand, making a gesture of checking. At the same time, Li Wei's left thumb flicked slightly, almost instantly, the card he had previously grabbed entered his sleeve, and then another card was drawn from inside his sleeve. Then, Li Wei took down the card and glanced cautiously. Shenhao doesn't look anything unusual, as if he hasn't noticed his little movements. Li Wei breathed a sigh of relief and showed a hint of sneer. The card he changed is a spade A. This is the method he just came up with. Since he can't draw the top big card, he might as well switch to another one. Having been involved in gambling for many years, Li Wei naturally has more than just one cheating method. Shenhao, let's lift the cards. I guarantee you'll lose this game. Immediately, Li Wei squinted his eyes and said word by word. It seems that Brother Li is very confident. Shenhao smiled meaningfully and lifted his trump card. Block 9. Wang Jie's face changed. This card is not big. However, Li Wei also played cards by luck, perhaps even smaller than Shenhao. The floral shirt and bald head showed a cheerful expression, although they didn't see what card Li Wei was trading for, they were definitely bigger than the 9 diamonds. It's such a small card. I thought your good luck could last. Sure enough, Li Wei's face was full of sarcasm, and he slammed his card onto the table. In the last game, it was really a losing game. Did Li Wei win? Wang Jie's heart sank and he quickly looked over, suddenly stunned. Li Wei's card is actually a spade 4. Isn't this smaller than Shenhao's card? Chapter 9. Public Exposure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ha ha ha. Li Wei, however, seemed unaware and burst out laughing. Shenhao, it's not easy for you to earn so much money from me, but you lost all to me in the last game. How does it feel to be overturned? I really want to know how you feel now. He laughed recklessly, as if trying to vent all the pent-up emotions in his heart. However, with a smile, Li Wei suddenly felt something was wrong. Because apart from himself, neither the shirt nor the bald head smiled, but his face turned blue. Shenhao and Wang Jie looked at him like idiots. You. Li Wei's smile slowly stiffened, and he suddenly felt an extremely uneasy feeling. Shenhao pointed to the card in front of him and gestured for him to take a look. Li Wei stiffened his neck and slowly lowered his head. In an instant, his whole blood seemed to coagulate. Impossible. Li Wei seemed to explode and suddenly stood up, shouting loudly, "It's spade A, how could it become spade 4? You must have read it wrong." Shenhao chuckled and said, "Brother Li, I know it's difficult for you to accept, but this is a fact. If you don't accept it, you have to accept it." Fart. Li Wei was furious and slammed the table. I changed the cards myself, how could I possibly read them wrong? There must be ghosts inside. Swapped cards. Shenhao sneered, "Did you cheat?" Li Wei's face stiffened. Screaming before he could react, the cuffs suddenly parted and several playing cards fell out. Hide the cards. You did cheat. Wang Jie saw it and immediately shouted loudly. So this ghost is yourself. Shenhao gave a cold smile and said, I wanted to cheat and change cards, but unfortunately my eyes were not good. I mistakenly replaced spade A with spade 4, and ended up lifting a stone and hitting myself in the foot. He had long seen a hidden card in Li Wei's sleeve with his divine sense, using a trick to deceive him easily. Then he used a little magic to make Li Wei's sleeve automatically thread, exposing his cheating methods. No. Li Wei's eyes were torn apart and he couldn't help but tremble all over. In the final game, not only did he lose all his wealth, but he also exposed his cheating methods and spread them, causing his reputation to tarnish. He couldn't continue to deceive, not to mention his survival. I really look down on you with such vulgar means. Shenhao sneered, Fatty, take the money, let's go. Okay. Wang Jia looked disdainfully at Li Wei and was about to step forward. Shua. Suddenly, Li Wei pulled out a spring knife from behind his waist and pointed it fiercely at Wang Jia. Wang Jia was startled and quickly stepped back. Two little brats, just relying on you, you also want to win my money in car. Don't be so dreamy. Li Wei's face was grim, exuding a sense of madness. Do you want to cheat? Shenhao stood up, his eyes flashing with cold light. What can I do if I don't trust you? If you dare to take a penny from me, I'll stab you to death. And I'll tell you Shenhao, this matter is not over today, so you can wait for me to retaliate. Li Wei cursed fiercely, grabbed the IOU and the car key and stuffed them into his pocket. Let's go. Yes, brother Li. Hua's shirt and bald head fiercely drew out their daggers, picked up their suitcase, and hurriedly walked out with Li Wei. The gamblers around were stunned by the situation and hurriedly hid far away. Aubin. In the neighboring room, Ling Jia's pretty face suddenly turned cold as she watched this scene. Understood, Sister Ling. The strong man also showed anger and quickly walked out of the room. I'll take a look, can you guys leave? Shenhao sneered and stepped forward to stop the three people. Shenhao, come back quickly. They have knives in their hands. Wang Jia is in a great hurry. Be careful. The strong man named Aubin happened to open the door and exclaimed in surprise when he saw this scene. Grass mud horse, do you really think I dare not poke you? Li Wei had a deep hatred towards Shenhao, and in a frenzy, without hesitation, he stabbed him fiercely with a knife. Everyone screamed in unison. Shenhao sneered and punched Li Wei hard in the face. Li Wei let out a loud cry and flew backwards, splashing blood all over his mouth and falling heavily to the ground. Shenhao took a step forward and placed his hand on the shoulder of the flower's shirt. As soon as he exerted a slight force, the flower's shirt let out a pig-like scream, dislocated his arm, and with a clang, the dagger fell to the ground. Shenhao picked him up with one hand and gently swung him, like a sandbag of human flesh, fiercely hitting the bald body that had not yet reacted. With a muffled thud, the two of them burst into bloodshed and rolled to the ground, howling in sorrow. The chess and card room suddenly fell silent, and everyone looked at Shenhao in shock. The strong man Aubin also froze. A warrior. In the next room, Ling Jia saw this scene and was surprised. Her beautiful eyes suddenly became incredibly bright. Shenhao is actually very calm. With his cultivation in the early stage of qi refining, it's not easy to defeat a few ordinary people. He walked up to Li Wei and bent down to take out the IOU from his shirt pocket. He tore several pieces into pieces, then took out the car key and put it in his pocket. Fatty guy, let's go. Then, Shenhao picked up two suitcases and said. Okay. Wang Jia looked silly and only realized after a while. He quickly picked up another suitcase and followed Shenhao towards the outside. Shenhao. Don't push people too hard. Li Wei struggled to get up with blood all over his face and shouted with great hatred, I can't beat you, but I can retaliate against your family. If you don't want your family to suffer from missing arms and legs and encountering unexpected disasters, just leave the money for me. Do you dare to threaten me? Upon hearing this, Shenhao suddenly stopped and turned around, his eyes shining with an unparalleled cold light. His family is his nemesis, and when Li Wei said this, Shenhao immediately had a murderous intent in his heart. Li Wei suddenly shuddered, and for an instant, he felt as if he was being stared at by a bloodthirsty beast, with extreme fear. Are you trying to retaliate? Suddenly, a cold female voice sounded. The door to the monitoring room opened and Ling walked out slowly. Ling Jie. The other gamblers showed reverence and spoke in unison. Li Wei's face suddenly turned pale. Li Wei, are you playing tricks on others in my field, being caught on the spot for cheating, being a scoundrel and threatening their families? Ling sneered, that's really despicable. Do you know, according to the rules, I'll cut off your hand lightly. Ling Jie, I know I was wrong, and I won't dare to do it again in the future. With a thud, Li Wei knelt down directly and begged for mercy. He is just an ordinary thug, so he dares to threaten ordinary people. When facing Ling Jie, he immediately becomes cowardly. If you dare to touch Shenhao and his family's hair, don't blame me for being impolite to you. Ling Jie exclaimed in a daze, reached out and threw the butterfly knife. With a loud snatch, it plunged deeply into the chess table. I dare not, I dare not. Li Wei trembled with fear. Please transfer your car to Shenhao within 3 days. Get out of here and don't appear in front of me again in the future. Ling waved in disgust. Yes. Li Wei reluctantly glanced at Shenhao, wearing a floral shirt and a bald head, and left in embarrassment. Chapter 10. Chu Lingling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shenhao watched coldly, knowing that Li Wei was hating him and would probably never stop in the future. However, he doesn't care at all. As a cultivator, there are ways to make this person disappear silently in the world. Thank you, Sister Ling. Immediately, Shenhao said to Sister Ling. Although he can handle Li Wei and the others himself, Ling Jie's involvement is better. And before Wang Jie was kicked out by the casino, it should have been an order from Sister Ling. Both emotion and reason should be appreciated. Ling's beautiful eyes sparkled with a brilliant light. With her beauty and status, other men look at her with either awe or desire. Only Shenhao had clear and clean eyes, and his attitude was neither humble nor aloof. You're welcome, Shenhao. After watching your gambling game just now, I also really want to gamble with you. Can you show me the favor? Immediately, Ling Jie smiled brightly and said. No need, Sister Ling. Actually, I don't like gambling, so don't embarrass yourself in front of you. Shenhao hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and said. Don't worry, I won't win your money. Ling smiled brightly and said, I just want to make a simple bet with you. Can I give you face? As she spoke, she showed a hopeful look in her eyes. Behind him, Aubin stared blankly. As a loyal subordinate for many years, he had never seen Ling behave so little in front of a man. Okay. Shenhao couldn't refuse to see her say so. Come to my room. Ling smiled slightly, twisted her graceful waist, and walked ahead. Shenhao, it seems that Sister Ling has a good impression of you. You must seize this opportunity. If you can rely on her, you won't have to worry in the future. Wang Jie and Shenhao followed behind, whispering excitedly as they walked. What did Ling come from? Shenhao asked without hesitation. Ling Jie's full name is Chu Lingling. Although she is young, she lives a comfortable life on the Donglin market and is a high-ranking figure. There are many legends about her, which are quite legendary. I will talk to you when I have time. Wang Jie said. Shenhao nodded, not caring in his heart. No matter what kind of big shot they are ultimately people from the secular world, and they are not in the same world as cultivators. Naturally, there is no need for them to flatter. A few people entered the surveillance room, and Aubin was the last one to come in and close the door. Let's also compare sizes. Chu Lingling took out a brand new pair of poker and smiled, would you like to take a look? I haven't tampered with anything. I can trust Sister Ling. Shenhao smiled. Although it's just a casual game, there must be a saying about winning or losing. Chu Lingling said, Shenhao, if you win, this card belongs to you. She said, pulling out a golden card like a magic trick. This gold card is exquisitely crafted, shining like pure gold, with 2 powerful cursive characters engraved on it. Wantong. Wantong gold card. Wang Jie's eyes suddenly widened and he exclaimed in surprise. Ling Jie, this is a gift personally given to you by Chairman Lin. Aubin's face also changed, and he couldn't help but remind him. Chu Lingling waved her hand. Aubin had to shut up. Shenhao was taken aback, as he had never heard of any Wantong gold card. It is a private gold card issued by Wantong Group on a small scale. Owning this gold card is equivalent to being a VIP of Wantong Group, enjoying various rights. There are only a few dozen cards in the entire Donglin city, and even if you have money, you cannot buy them. It is a symbol of status and status. Wang Jie knew he didn't know, and explained in a low voice. Shenhao finally understood. He has also heard of Wantong Group, a large conglomerate with assets worth over 10 billion yuan. Chairman Lin Wanyan is a prominent figure in Donglin City. Ling, this gold card is too precious. I don't have anything to gamble with you. Shenhao said. You don't need to take anything. If you lose, just do me a favor. Chu Lingling smiled slightly. What are you busy with? Shenhao was somewhat surprised. I'm not convenient to tell you for now, but it's definitely within your capabilities, and I won't force you to do anything unwilling. Chu Lingling said. Shenhao's heart was moved. With Chu Lingling's position, what else can I do for him as an ordinary person? Did you see something? Okay. He thought for a moment and agreed. Let's start then. Chu Lingling placed the playing cards on the table and said, I drew first. She casually drew a card and smiled as she clasped it in front of her. Shenhao glanced at his divine sense and his expression suddenly became strange. He didn't say anything and also drew a card. I'm showing my cards. Chu Lingling lifted the card. Aubin and Wang Jie were both surprised as they watched. Surprisingly, it's a plum blossom too. I said it's about comparing the size of the game, but I didn't say. Is it a small card win or a big card win? Chu Lingling looked at Shenhao cunningly and said, now I announce that whoever holds a small card will win. Wang Jie let out a sound, his face speechless. Aubin chuckled and looked sympathetically at Shenhao. Even if you have excellent gambling skills, you have also been deceived by our sister Ling, don't worry, I lost. Shenhao gave a bitter smile and said, I agree to your request, Sister Ling. Actually, I also played tricks, but I think you shouldn't blame me, right? Chu Lingling playfully blinked her eyes at Shenhao, her eyes flowing and beautiful, with an indescribable allure. Even Shenhao, as a cultivator with full concentration, couldn't help but feel a shock in his heart. Ling, then I'll leave with Fatty first. You can call me if you're looking for me. Shenhao reported a string of numbers. Wait, this is for you. Chu Lingling picked up the Wantong gold card and walked up to him, saying. Didn't I lose? Shenhao was surprised. I originally intended to give it to you, but I was afraid you wouldn't accept it, so I used this method. Chu Lingling smiled sweetly and said, you don't have to refuse, just treat it as a reward for helping me. As she spoke, she approached closely and stuffed the Wantong gold card into Shenhao's inner pocket of his shirt. Thank you, Sister Ling. Shenhao smelled the musk-like fragrance on her body, and was touched by slender fingers like jade, feeling as if it was electrified. He couldn't help but feel his heart racing. He quickly picked up his suitcase and left with Wang Jie. You're quite shy. Chu Lingling flirtatiously brushed her hair and giggled. Aubin looked at her with a hesitant expression. Just say whatever you want, it's so uncomfortable to keep it in your heart. Chu Lingling said leisurely. Ling Jie, even though Shenhao has excellent gambling skills and extraordinary skills, he has no influence or background. This is his first time meeting again. Is it worth trying to win him over like this? Aubin asked. Of course it's worth it. For warriors, a Wantong gold card is nothing. Chu Lingling gave a faint smile and sat in the boss's chair, her delicate jade hands skillfully playing with the butterfly knife. A warrior? Aubin asked in confusion, are you saying Shenhao is very good at fighting? It's not the kind of gimmick you think you know how to fight. Chu Lingling said, the martial artist I'm talking about is someone who truly has kung fu. Ling, did you read it wrong? Aubin's face was full of disbelief. If I were to defeat a low-level thug like Li Wei and become a warrior, then I would be too, he said.